So with Evo coming up, I thought it'd be a fun time to dabble with a series that I'm going to call a look back at. And I can't think of any better series to start off than with Tekken. Tekken is no stranger to this channel. It's, well, what I started my channel with back during the Tekken Tag Tournament 2 days in mid 2012. And I've since done hundreds of videos throughout my 7 years on YouTube on the King of Iron Fist tournament. From combo videos to tutorials and, well, even a series about known and not so known facts, it's a series about a jank family feud that has been going on strong for the last 2.5 decades, and while very hokey at times, has created a lasting legacy that not many games can claim to have. So sit back and relax as we take a look back at this series of devils, electrics, jaguar mask-wearing luchadors, and robots. This is a look back at Tekken 1. It was the early 90s, 1993 to be exact, and Sega had just released the very first 3D fighting game ever made, Virtua Fighter, which would spawn a legendary series of its own. While many 3D fighting games would come out in the years to come, Namco's Tekken was one of the very few that broke the mold of being a Virtua Fighter clone, with some variable being different, by wanting to be a Virtua Fighter with double the frame rate and more polygons than you can count on one hand. But wait. Rave War, as it was originally called, was produced and created by ex-Sega employees who had worked on Virtua Fighter, namely one of its co-producers, Seiichi Ishii. The initial goal of Rave War was to create a 3D fighting game that was like Virtua Fighter, but doubling the frame rate from 30 frames per second to 60, as well as actually texturing its characters, separating itself from the untextured low polygon count models of Virtua Fighter. At some point in time, the name was changed from Rave War to Tekken, a fitting name as it translates to Iron Fist. Characters had detail on them that, in my opinion, were almost on par with Virtua Fighter 2's. Though I'll give credit to Virtua Fighter, their animations certainly were less janky than Tekken 1's. But this doesn't mean Tekken's was any lesser at all. For Namco's first 3D fighting game, it was a rather good attempt. When you first start playing Tekken, you immediately know and feel just how different it is from Virtua Fighter. I'm sorry I keep bringing up Virtua Fighter, but I promise I'm pretty much done after this. While Virtua Fighter uses a 3-button layout, GPK, or guard punch kick, Tekken is different, opting for a 4-button layout and holding back to guard. Instead of 1 punch and 1 kick button to handle their respective limbs, or buttons corresponding with strengths of an attack, Tekken's 4-button layout was both a smart and fantastic way to handle the input system. Each button corresponds with one of the character's limbs. Here in the US, we call them 1, 2, 3, and 4, or square, triangle, cross, and circle. I'll be using the 1, 2, 3, 4 method since this is easier for me to explain. Like I said, each button matches with one limb. 1 is for left punch, 2 is for right punch, 3 is for left kick, and 4 is for right kick. Combining this with different directions from your arcade stick or D-pad, Tekken was able to expand its number of possible commands to the 100 plus command move list that you see nowadays. While the game looks 3D, it really isn't truly the free-moving 3D fighters that we know and love today. We wouldn't see that kind of game for a couple more iterations. Instead, Tekken and many other 3D fighters opted to have a pseudo 3D system, where characters could get knocked down and thrown into the back and foreground, realigning the camera to get both characters back in frame. I love how janky the actual gameplay is. Since this was the Wild West of 3D fighters, nothing was off the table. We had crazy looking moves like Michelle's 1-1-1, 2 hold back, King's giant swing throw, and many moves that to this day are staples for its returning cast. Things like the cross chop and spring kicks are here, and hell, I'm sure many of these moves probably still use the same animations that they did 25 years ago. Tekken has a vast selection of characters, though half of them are bosses that require unlocking. Remember doing that back in the day? Man, I'm old. Tekken 1 had an initial roster of 8 characters. Yoshimitsu, a kabuki-wearing ninja with a sword who sounds about as unfair as you would think, infinite kicks, Izuna drops, and the like. Nina Williams, a femme fatale with a move list that will leave you scratching your head as you're launched when hit with unblockables. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that this game has unblockables? Crazy, right? Martial Law, the Bruce Lee character of the game, and while in this game he isn't that 3-bar dragon-tailing terror we know him as today, he was still a fairly good character and kind of a threat. Almost every fighting game has this Bruce Lee character trope, and honestly, Law is one of my favorites. Kazuya Mishima, the main character of the game, a mix-up monster with a hidden anime power of darkness. Using Wind God Fists and Hell Sweeps, he had no problem dealing with competition. Paul Phoenix, the meme himself, Mr. Death Fist. Like, seriously, I think Launch Jab Death Fist was basically a full kill combo in this game, if not 90%. And even now, Death Fist is still a move that Tekken players fear. Jack, a big, bulky robot that looks human, using a strange fighting style, and he has a body splash. Though he has kind of a weird baby face in this game, and it's really weird to look at. King is easily one of the most recognizable characters in this series. He's a jaguar mask wearing luchador, and he throws you for days. His down forward 1 is like plus 97 on block and is abusable to hell. The frame data and standards like this weren't a thing back in these days. And then we have Michelle Chang. She lives on a reservation and has it sort of like Nina. She'll do a lot of strings and you're gonna get hit. Overall, she's a really cool character. I do enjoy playing as her as well. As for unlockable characters, you have characters like Kunimitsu, who is a female Yoshimitsu clone, Armor King, a kind of King clone, but he has his own moves and he wears a black jaguar mask instead of a yellow one. Prototype Jack, I think his name pretty much explains it all. Kuma is actually a bear. The big bad man himself, Heihachi Mishima, father of the main character Kazuya Mishima, and the one who starts this whole tournament and basically the whole series. Lee Chaolan is the adopted son of Heihachi. Wang Jinrei is an old master of... Xin Yi Liao Hiquan. I'm pretty sure I butchered that. My Chinese sucks. And Anna Williams, Nina's sister, who is also another femme fatale. She is a fantastic character as well. And Ganryu, a sumo wrestler who owns his own restaurant called Chanko Paradise. A lot of these sub-characters and sub-bosses would be more fleshed out in future games, becoming their own standalone fighters, but for the most part, they're kind of clones of each other. And what makes Tekken 1 such a fun experience is really how unique every one of the characters are. Aside from sub-bosses, like I mentioned before, they're all pretty much fun. It's kind of crazy to think that Heihachi had forward 2, twin pistons, and a really broken electric. Like, it's crazy how broken he was in this game. The stages are equally as diverse as our cast, with locations from around the world like Greece, Japan, China, Chicago, Utah, and even Antarctica. Almost like another popular fighting game franchise. Also the music. Don't even get me started on how fantastic this OST is. Each stage has such memorable themes, and considering this was the original PlayStation 1 days, the MIDI instruments just slap. I know I just said that. Feel free to unsubscribe now. My personal favorite song off of this soundtrack is the Kyoto stage theme. This would end up being reused as Ganryu's theme in Tekken 2. But if you were looking for a little terror in your fighting game, then just load up Monument Valley and you'll dread ever having to play on this stage. For For me, Tekken 1's OST is a solid, good 7 out of 10. There's a reason I use a lot of Tekken music, and it's because it's just consistently good across the board. The story, which you don't really get a lot of from the game itself, is a story about a son getting revenge on his father for attempting to kill him as a child. Yeah, that's a fantastic premise, right? A worldwide martial arts tournament is nearing its end, and a large prize pool is to be awarded to the fighter who can defeat Heihachi Mishima in the final round of the competition, being awarded the title of King of the Iron Fist tournament. Only 8 fighters remain, and one of them is Kazuya Mishima, Heihachi's son. He was thrown off a cliff when he was 5 years old. Heihachi believing he was too weak at the time, Kazuya barely survives his brush with death, leaving a giant scar across his chest. Kazuya enters the tournament to get revenge on his father for all those years ago. And while you can select any of the 8 fighters and play them to completion, the canonical ending is Kazuya's. Speaking of endings, I love how even from the first Tekken game, it has never taken itself super seriously. Many of these endings, no, all of these endings are hilarious, whether unintentional or not. From Kazuya's shit-eating smirk as he throws his father off a cliff, or Yoshimitsu tossing his winnings into the crowd where martial law's family is just conveniently there with him. And that face, that's an emote over on my Twitch channel. I had to do that, it was so dumb looking. My personal favorite, however, is King's. Seeing these green-screened, real-ass live children running in and jumping around a CG King in a PlayStation FMV compressed video is beyond hilarious. From the moment that you boot up Tekken, you'll realize that this is quite an experience. New fans of the series, or ones who have been playing since Tekken 3, like I have, will quickly realize this isn't your ordinary Tekken. A lot of mechanics weren't around back then, and some are no longer present. Moon-jumping kicks and Virtua Fighter-esque grounded leap attacks no longer exist, and staples like 10-hit combos, handsprings, and cross-chops have existed till this day. Hell, even Korean backdashing existed in this game. The input system is super stiff and strict, especially in comparison to the Tekken we have nowadays. And we have a much easier game now, but I didn't let that take away from the fun that I had playing the original Tekken. The game may not have aged very well, nor does it really stand up to today's modern gaming standards, but it's what spawned the Tekken we know today, and I can respect it for at least that. It's a game that deserves all the praises it got back when it originally released, and if you're a Tekken fan and haven't played this one, then you really owe it to yourself to pick it up and give it a go. It's on the PlayStation 3 PSN store, and it's usually pretty cheap. Trust me, it's worth at least trying once.
You win!
And that about wraps it up for the first episode of A Look Back At. One thing that I should mention too before the video ends is that I love the Easter eggs and like little things throughout the series, especially in this game. Like seriously, unlocking Devil Kazuya was super cool, and especially since he looks like Star Platinum. And yes, even in the 90s, video games and anime had tons of JoJo's references. If you want to see what other JoJo's references are in the Tekken series, then you should check out the other video I did a long time ago called Behind the Fighter. I did a video on Tekken where you can learn other known and not so known facts about Tekken. And thank you to everybody who has made it to the end of this video. I appreciate your support, and if you want to support the channel in other ways, you can subscribe and hit the bell notification to get notified when I upload more videos. And you can also share the video, you can like it, comment down below some other things you would like to see, and you can follow me on Twitter. We have a Twitch where you can watch us stream video games and, well, even subscribe for as little as $4.99 a month, which gets you access to emotes and a bunch of other stuff when we're streaming, and it helps us out. There's also a Patreon that I do advertise, but I haven't really restructured yet or made good, I guess, if you can put it. That's where you'll be able to get some videos like this one a day ahead of everybody else, and you can also support us for about as little as $1 each month. And finally, we have the merch store, which you can use to go pick up some cool t-shirts and hoodies and all that other good stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to show us, talk about before the end of the video. And yeah, all those links will be down in the description, and I'm pretty much done here. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.